Hello, this is Jay King, self-made millionaire, coming to you from MillionairePennyStocks.com. And today I'd like to talk to you briefly about a trade that was made today, CLRB. This has been your supernova trade. It's been going crazy. Last week we put this particular trade on our watch list. But the purpose in this teaching today is to teach you about breakouts. Some people call them earnings winners, but also stocks that break out or stocks that usually break out into new heights. If you look at the historical quotes on E-Trade, you can see that this particular stock has been in the mid-1 range and also the $2 range. But all of a sudden here in May, we have a breakout. Notice March the 20th, I'm sorry, May the 20th, it breaks out from 118 all the way to 397. And today it goes all the way up to 493. So we do see a uptrend with this particular stock. If you look at the chart, notice how the volume increases. Now remember what we focus on at MillionairePennyStocks.com. We focus on price action, momentum, volatility, and volume. And we see here, look at the breakout. So this stock has entered into new heights. Speaking of CLRB, and when you look at this, when we talk about volatility, we're just talking about the day range or the volatile spread, which is 303 to 493. So this is almost a $2 spread. We're looking at a 193 spread. But today, I wanted to show you my logic concerning this trade because I want you to understand my psychology behind every trade that I make. I'm not able to post every trade, but I'm going to try to do video lessons on some of the trades that I do make so you'll understand my makeup and my consciousness as it relates to why I entered into the trade. Now remember, every trade you enter into, you ought to enter into every trade with a goal. You should also know what your entry points are and what your exit points will be. Also, you should already know what the support levels and the resistance levels are entering into trades. Now this trade opened up at 343. And so I missed the breakout on this trade. This trade went all the way up from 343. It found resistance at 493. Resistance levels is just simply when a stock cannot break past a certain price. It pretty much hits the ceiling. So that tells me that the price is probably going to start declining because it can't break past this particular wall or resistance level. And so around 10:30 or 11 o'clock, I decided to dip buy. This particular stock began to decline, and it found support several times. Remember, stocks are going to find support throughout the day, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Support level is just simply when a stock doesn't go beneath a certain price. It slows down, it consolidates for a little while. And normally when I buy stocks, I like to buy when stocks consolidate, when the market slows down. This makes me feel like I'm not chasing the stock. I have a better entry point. But I want to show you, if you look at my trade on this particular stock, CLRB, the whole goal was to enter into the stock at about 426. So you'll see that I bought this stock at 426. And if you look real closely, you see the buy right here at 426. I only bought 500 shares on this particular play. And the reason I only bought 500 shares is you have to understand in the morning, breakouts are your most typical times that stocks like to break out, anywhere from $1 to $3 to $4. Stocks usually break out in the morning time. But I got into this trade kind of late, and so I felt that the support level would be around 428. We had several support levels where the stock consolidated, and I was able to get a good entry. But I got in at 428 on this particular stock. This was already when it started to declining from its highs of 493. So it went down to 428, 427. So I got in with 500 shares. Now remember, the purpose of getting in with 500 shares is because the market is still pretty hot around 9 or 10 o'clock. You don't want to buy a lot of shares when you're growing a small account. Even if you have a big account, it's not smart to come in the morning with a lot of shares that you purchase. So I would minimize when you're looking to get into a stock. For instance, if I would have got into this stock in the opening of the stock, when the stock opened up at 343, I would have bought about 300 or 400 shares, and I would have played the breakout. So if I could, if I could have got in on this trade, I would have made about almost $1.50 spread. It would have been good, but I decided to play the dip on this particular play. And so again, I want to show you how I entered in at 426 with 500 shares. The quantity just simply means how many shares I purchased. Now look here, The stock, when I bought it at 426, it went all the way up to 434, 435. But that wasn't my original goal entering into the stock. My original goal when I entered in, I wanted to get about a 50 cents to a $1 upside on the trade because it had already tested 493. So I knew that it was a possibility that it could break today's highs. It could go up to $5, $6. So when I bought at 426, my goal was to get in at 426, and I wanted to, get at least a 50 cents to a dollar spread. So this didn't happen. So I noticed it went up to 434, 435, and it couldn't break 435, right? So this stock ended up coming back down to about 432, 431, and I immediately sold at about 428 when it got to about 429. And you can see here, I actually sold at 428 where I sold. Now this is a really good trade. I want to show you trades that help you to maintain your discipline. When you enter into a stock in the morning, and let's say you enter into a stock and this particular stock does not meet your goals. Now with this particular trade, I didn't open up and enter into this trade. I missed the breakout, so I didn't want to chase it. So I waited for the stock to begin to decline a little bit and find support and consolidate. Now it consolidated several times at 445, 438, and then it consolidated at 428, which I got in. But it was real interesting. Once I got in, I noticed it wasn't breaking past 431, 432. So I'm glad that I sold it. I only got a 1 or 2 cent spread, but I wasn't concerned with how much I was going to make on that trade. Because remember, when I'm going in with 500 shares, I'm not trying to make 5 or 10 cents a spread. I'm trying to make about 50 cents to $2 on this trade because it's a very volatile trade. But listen, this is my number one rule. When anytime you enter into a trade, if it doesn't work out for you, you minimize your risk by exiting. So I'm so glad I exited this trade because it went all the way back down to about 370, 380. And that was a wonderful dip buy. I missed that dip buy at 370, 385. And my entry was at 428. So this is why it's so important. I'm sorry, my entry is at 426. But this is why it's so important to cut losses and minimize your risk. When you're wrong about a trade, when you enter into a trade, remember now, you're not going to be right about every trade because every trade is going to have several levels of support. And if you choose to dip buy and wait for the stock to kind of decline in price and eventually consolidate, you may enter in at the wrong support level. And my support level was 426, I'm sorry. And I chose to sell at 428 because I saw the stock losing momentum. And it ended up going all the way down to 380 to 375. So I was glad that I stuck with my number one rule. I kind of wanted to show you a trade today that's not so much supernova and it's not exciting, but this is the foundational way of trading. If you enter into a trade at 426 and you find the trade going up, but it's meeting a lot of resistance at 430, 431, and you're playing the breakout, I saw that it wasn't breaking past 430, 431. It got up to 434, but it just couldn't get up to that 440, 450, 460. So since it didn't meet my goals and it didn't meet my criteria, I immediately exited the trade. I didn't care about the commission. I didn't care about the $5 or $10 profit. That didn't concern me at all. Really on this trade, I probably lost about $12 because I had to pay commission fees. But what you have to understand is I minimized my risk. If I would have sold at 380 or 370 when it dropped, then I would have eventually ended up losing over $300 or $400. So I want to show you how I kept my risk minimum on this trade. When I entered in, I didn't get the technical breakout that I was looking for. And so I practiced discipline and I exited the trade. I entered in at 426 with 500 shares. And went all the way up to 433, 434. It couldn't break past those key levels of resistance. So I sold at 428. And I'm very glad to see that I stuck with my rules. But I want you to see how important it is to stick with your rules and stick with discipline. In the morning is the best time to enter into stocks to see if they will break out into new heights. If you're playing the breakout, remember, don't buy 2 or 3 or 4,000 shares in the morning. That's not the time to do that. A better time to buy 2,000 shares or 1,500 or 3,000 a lot of times is when the stocks consolidate in the afternoon and you can buy on the dip, and that's pretty more efficient to buy more shares. Other times you'll know in the morning when you can buy 2,000 or 3 or 4 or 5,000 shares based on the stock's movement and its volatility. That comes through experience. But again, this is Jay King, Self-Made Millionaire. We're talking about CLRB. Congrats to those that made money on the breakout. Have a great day.